Hello lovely people, how are you all doing today? I hope you're well. I am. I was planning to go to the garden today to do some harvesting, but another inclement day, so I decided to stay home and get things done indoors instead. There's a lot for me to catch up on because I've been spending so much time in the garden. More about one of those things later. First of all, I just want to address the last video. Thank you so much for all your comments and your well wishes. It's absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, overwhelming, in fact. And I suppose I just wanted to have a quick catch up today. Apart from anything else, is a sort of a reassurance and a sort of an explanation of plans and what's going to happen and what I'm hoping to happen. Because I know a lot of people were sort of, despite me saying, please don't suggest ways to keep the plot, because I'm not keeping it, suggested ways. And look, I appreciate that, thank you, because I know it comes from a really good place. But the fact is, I've made my mind up. It's too much for me. I don't want to cover old ground from that video, but just to say some of the things I think that maybe didn't quite come across is I just don't even want to walk there anymore, because that's painful. But also, something that I think probably a lot of folk haven't thought about is that from the end of August to the beginning of October or so, when the majority of the harvests are happening on a daily basis in some cases, I've got to drag all those kilos of food home. Now listen, don't get me wrong, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful I've had this garden, but the fact is, after bit of a tough session in the garden and then the walk home, never even mind the stairs, but walking home, dragging all that stuff, and then working late into the evening, sometimes beyond midnight, processing things, going from, chopping, blanching, freezing, roasting, whatever it is, water bath canning, beyond midnight, all the time on my feet. It's too much. It's just too much. And yes, of course, there are some jobs I could do sitting down, like I shell my beans when I'm sitting down, of course I do. But when I'm sort of blanching and ice bathing, blanch, ice bath my tomatoes, and I'm skinning them and, bottling them, yeah, it's all too much. And before anyone says, oh, you don't need to do all that to preserve your tomatoes, I know, but whatever technique I use, it still involves a whole bunch of kitchen time, just after I've dragged myself home from the plot. So, look, thank you, but no, I'm not going to downsize, I'm not going to get help, it's done. I've paid up until the end of March next year. I've put in a load of work this year already, so of course I'm going to, carry on this year. And I know some people have said, oh, you're going to regret this. You don't know my mind. I know my mind. And what I would say is this. I know it's the right decision because literally the next day, you saw the video on Sunday. I'd actually made it on the Friday. Later that Friday afternoon, I had a lovely chat with Paul. I told him, I said, that's it, I've done it. I'm quitting the plot, handing my notice in. That was really great to just chew the fat with him. But then Saturday morning when I woke up, I just had this huge, huge sense of relief. I can barely describe it. It was just the most gorgeous sensation of, I don't have to do this anymore. It was brilliant. That tells me I've made the right decision. Not a single ounce of regret the next day. And that's not to say I'm not sad about it. Of course I am. I wish to goodness that I had the same body as so many of my other friends my age, where they don't have an ounce of arthritis. Lucky them. I wish that so much. But it's not the case for me. This is what I've been dealt. I'm dealing with it. Yeah, I'm sad about leaving the garden, but oh my goodness, I'm so relieved too. Hang on, slug, and then I'm going to talk about parts of the relief. The thing is, and so as I was saying in the shed, because I'm going so slowly at every task, I am having to spend more and more and more time in the garden, and it's getting to the stage of it's every single day just to get a garden. And I'm missing out on so much other stuff because of that. I'm missing out on, I'm missing out on all sorts of other things I want to do, but I'm also missing out on people. I'm missing out on friends, because there are so many times when friends have said, oh, we're having a picnic in the park this Saturday, come and join us. And I've had to say, no, sorry, I can't. I need to plant something, or I need to harvest something, or X, Y, Z. So I'm missing out on that. I've been missing out on, I've got a number of friends, 8, 9 friends, who live in the States and in Canada. I'm missing out on them as well, because normally our way of keeping in touch is FaceTime. We do like video phone calling, but of course, because of the time difference, for me that call is usually at 6 or 7 in the afternoon, early evening. And in the last year or so, particularly in the last year or so, I've hardly been doing it, because by the time it's 6 or 7 in the evening, I'm in so much pain from the garden. I'm so grumpy and tearful. I don't want to speak to anyone. I just shut the door, come in here and whatever. So I've been missing out on those friendships too. So yeah, giving up the garden, it's sad. But oh my goodness, I am so excited about the possibilities this extra time will afford me. And it's going to be a huge amount of time. For instance, so the gardening year for me, it really kicks off at the beginning of March. I do a little bit in February, a bit of seed sowing, peppers, what have you. But it really kicks off in March with the first bits of bed prep, and the first thing is going in. And then it carries on at a full pelt really until the end of October and just into November, when I'm getting the last harvests out. I'm doing all my crop and drop, and I'm tucking up the beds that won't be in use over winter. I tuck them up. Obviously there are some beds that I keep open in the winter with brassicas, but I would say from about the second week of November to the end of February, the garden becomes, generally then it is a once a week visit, and it's just for harvesting and sort of keeping things in check, keeping things tidy. So that means that for 8 months of the year, it's like the garden, the harvests, the preserving of the harvests, it takes over everything else. Someone was saying to me, because I was talking about, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose half my videos. Of course, I've already got ideas for new videos for next year. So the plan is, I'll keep the garden going until March, but obviously over the winter it'll be quiet anyway. So the gardening videos will tail off this year. I'll keep them going, but then they'll tail off by winter. And then for next year, instead of gardening videos, although there might be some, more of that in a second, I've already got a ton of ideas for videos I'd like to do with you. In the kitchen. You see, this is the other thing. People keep saying, oh, do more cooking videos. Well, part of it is, again, it's literally for the last 5 years, how often have I said to you all, I'd love to do that, I just don't have the time. People write in comments with ideas of, oh, you could do this for your shop. And I say, yeah, I'd love to, I don't have time. Write a book, Vivi, I don't have time. Do your recipes, Vivi, I don't have time. It's just been like every month something will come up and I say, yeah, I don't have time. Someone was saying that they really liked it when I did book reviews, when I chat through the books I've been reading. The fact is, I only read books in sort of December and January and a bit of February. The rest of the year, I don't have time. I'm too pooped. So hopefully I'd have more time to read and the book reviews. Sorry, I was just talking about cooking, wasn't I? My energy is so high at the moment because I'm so excited for what Vivi did next. But back to the food thing, I haven't made any, I really haven't done much by way of cooking videos, even in the last 2 years or so. And that's in Maine, it's partly time, but also it's that thing of by the time I come back from the garden and I'm cooking, I'm in pain. I don't want to put the camera on at that stage. But also because I'm kind of cooking the same things over and over again, because I haven't had time to experiment, time to have fun with trying new things, trying new recipes, experimenting a bit first, and then when I'm happy with it, bringing it to you in a video. No time. So that is something I'm definitely hoping to do next year. I've just done some shopping, so I'm going to do, you'll see it in a couple of days, a shopping haul video. And when I do that, I'm going to talk a little bit more about food next year once I don't have a garden. This weighs around everything. So yes, I'm just looking. I made some quick notes because I didn't want to forget things. So the possibilities, they are pretty much endless. Folk have been asking me about doing sewing videos. I've thought about it. I'm not sure, because the thing is, there are so many sewing channels out there, and they are frankly brilliant, and they are way better than me, way better than I'll ever be. You know, I think about Kate at Last Homely House. It kind of really puts me off doing a sewing video when I watch her, because she's just so brilliant. The world doesn't need any more sewing videos. They've got Kate. But, you know, it is something I'm tossing around ideas about, because something else I've talked about not having time for is dressmaking, because I used to make all my own clothes, and I haven't done that properly since I was in my early 20s. It's 30 years ago now. I don't know, I'd be a complete novice again. But I thought about that, and I thought, well, maybe what we can do is, if I think of myself as a complete novice again, is maybe we can do some garment sewing together as novices. So if you're an accomplished dressmaker, you will not want to watch it. But I know there's quite a few of you who aren't very experienced making things. So that's another possibility. The possibilities are endless. So one of the other possibilities are, you know, just to say, sorry, this might kind of keep coming round and round in circles today. Someone mentioned this, and I thought it was a really, really perceptive comment, so I've completely forgotten who it was. There were a lot of comments to get through. It was lovely to read all of them, but I've still got a few to answer today even. It's taken me quite a few hours to reply to everyone. Thank you. Someone talked about begrudging. Or was the word she used resenting? And she was asking me am I making this decision about leaving the garden now before I start to resent the garden? And truthfully, this year, I do resent the garden. Now, I know there are going to be people screaming at me, because honestly, there's always going to be someone who will take anything I say and use it, weaponize my own words against me. But of course I'm grateful for the garden. I hope that's obvious from over the years. Of course I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful for all the food. It goes without saying. Just because I'm grateful doesn't mean I can't also be a bit resentful. And I have resented the garden this year because it's taken me away from pretty much everything else in my life. And I'm emotionally smart enough to recognise that, never mind my knee health, that's not good for my mental health. There's no balance. That is not a balanced life. To be a slave to one thing is not balanced. If let's say you do your job and let's say you enjoy it. Let's say you're a nurse. Let's say you're in nursing and you love your job. But if you were doing your nursing job 7 days a week, week in, week out, with never a day off, you would resent it. Of course you would. That's natural. So I'm really, really glad to make my decision now, so that hopefully I feel so much more at peace with the whole thing. Hopefully now I will enjoy the garden this last summer. I'm giving myself that opportunity to have another summer and enjoy it. But for it to not carry on into next year and me be dreading next year before I've even enjoyed this year. And I think that's something that's been happening as well, is I'm already worrying about the future rather than enjoying the present. So good, solved that bit of a problem. Yes, lots more, frees up a lot of time. Let me show you something. This is a very special little folder. Actually, I've had it ages. The elastic went a bit... my knicker elastic went wonky, so I had to tie a knot in it to stop it. And the reason I've got this elastic around it is because not only are the pages all written on, but there's myriad, I think you can make that, there's myriad bits just stuck in here. This is a notebook chock full of ideas. And it's, you know, it's that thing over the years when people have said, oh, why don't you make aprons to sell in your shop? As if I hadn't thought of it. I have thought of it. It's in here. Not only are the ideas in here, but on a lot of the pages, I've sort of designed a pattern for things, obviously scaled down massively. I've even got things like patterns for laying out of the fabric for cutting to make the most of each piece of fabric. It's chock full of ideas, and not just making things for the shop in terms of fabric things, other avenues to explore for the shop, little DIY balm kits, all sorts of myriad. I mean, there's probably 100 ideas in it, if not more. Every time I have a new idea, I jot it down. I think, yes, one day when I've got some time, I'll do it. So this thing about having the time free, not just to create new, different videos, whether it's sewing or cooking, brilliant, but also the things I want to explore when the camera's not on, like having time to read, not necessarily to read in order to review a book on a video, but just time to read. The other thing that I've been dying to do for ages, and I've part started it, and I'd really hoped to, just reaching down for props, I'd really hoped to have it up and running, like a soft opening by the end of May. Missed that deadline. I've been talking for a while about this new section in my online shop. For those of you who don't know, I have an online shop. It's on my little website. The details are in the more info section, or I think the YouTube interface has changed, and I think it now just says read more. If you click on that, it drops down and you'll see the info for the shop. But this new section for my shop, which is all about sort of vintage haberdashery, vintage fabrics, vintage pattern books, vintage sewing accessories. So much lovely stuff. So at the moment where I'm at is, it's all around me. It's all around me. I've done a whole tranche of books and patterns, a few bits and pieces. I've washed lots of vintage fabrics, and I decided actually in the end to wash and press them just to freshen them up, because they all had that slightly old smell. It wasn't a repulsive smell, they weren't dirty, but they just had that slightly musty, dusty smell because they've been in storage for years. So it's all washed and pressed, my goodness, meters and meters and meters, all done, photographed. So I've begun that process of uploading the items into the shop. There's an area where I can put everything before you see it, and then at some point I can press, you know, upload, 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 and they'll all just appear. And this is stuff I've been doing during rain days when I haven't been able to be at the garden. But of course, every time there's a rain day, it puts me further behind in the garden. So then when it's a clear day, I have to race back down there, and all the time it's raining and I'm doing something else, half of my mind has been on the garden and worrying about how can I catch it up. No more. clear that headspace. Hallelujah. So, I'm going to have a slightly softer opening of the shop. But look, these, I haven't photographed any of these yet, but I was just, this morning, I was unwinding and measuring everything again. But these beautiful little woven ribbons, aren't they gorgeous? This one, I remember this one on, a gorgeous little kind of bib and brace dungaree set I had when I was really, really little. When I found these, it was just this instant back in time recognition. So that little pair of bib and brace for me must have been made when, it was the early 70s. So yeah, 50-year-old ribbon, but look at it, gorgeous condition, good as new. So that's to be photographed. But this, this is gorgeous. I've got loads of this. Show it to you en masse like that, and then just get this end of it. Again, I've been unwinding, pressing, measuring. This is beautiful, sort of crochet lace edging, tatting edging. I think it's crochet edging. Beautiful. Again, it's another one that's probably 50 years old. And yes, I know you can buy very similar, brand new. But for any of you who are, I was thinking about this, whether it's you need a little piece to restore something, how lovely if you can get something that's 50 years old, more in keeping with your item than something new. So this is all going to hopefully go live soonish. I will announce that on my Facebook page and on my Instagram, so you'll know. But then over time, I've got loads more to add to it. And then eventually, and I'm so excited to get me chops into this at last, I'm going to be making up those scrap packs I talked about ages ago. I think I talked about that back in February when it was before I was in proper garden mode. So I was thinking I'd be doing it that month. It didn't happen. But these scrap packs I'm going to make up for slow stitching, junk journaling, that sort of thing. And they will all be made from scraps of vintage linens, as in household linens, like the embroidered linens, which are damaged beyond repair, but I can rescue parts of them. They will be maybe some vintage fabrics, little swatches of fabrics, and some of them might be really tiny. I've got some really tiny little bits of Liberty fabrics left over, but it's those tiny little bits that people are loving sewing into journal covers for their junk journals, that sort of thing. Maybe each pack, I'm not sure yet, but the packs might have some vintage buttons in, other vintage trims. I am going to love putting those packs together because it's all the kind of stuff that I love. And what I hope is that when someone buys one of those packs and receives it, when they open it, what I hope, I know I'm going to be daft and sentimental about this now, but what I'm hoping is that the love that I feel for them and that I put into them will whoosh out of the package, and as soon as you open it, you'll be like, oh, I love this, I love it, I love it, love it. And you can't wait to get creative with all those different bits and pieces. So again, this is why I'm really, really positive about giving up the garden. Yes, I'm giving something up, but my goodness, I am gaining massively. The big thing, it's that time to do all these things I've been longing to do for the last 4 or 5 years. In some cases, they're things I've been longing to do for 10 years or more. So I think, oh my goodness, I do like to chat. So one of the other big things and a big impact from this whole garden lark business is the house move. So obviously everything's up in the air still, but just because I know people have been asking, just to give you an idea of timeline of things, a best case scenario for me. So I paid for the garden up until the end of March. I will keep it until the end of March. I'm even thinking that come October, I will sow broad beans and garlic, and they won't be for me to harvest. They will be for whoever inherits my plot. I would love it if there is some sort of handover so I can point out to that person where some of the perennial things are that will be still probably under the soil. So I can tell them about the tree lily, about the poached egg flowers. I can tell them about the crocosmia and the rhubarb and the sweet Sicily and the lovage. I can show them where all those plants are and where they're going to come back. I can, you know, tell them about the garlic and when it needs to be harvested, and the broad beans and when they... So I'm planning to carry on as if I was keeping the garden, in order that when I hand it over to someone else, it can be in the best state possible, so that whoever gets it can just hit the ground running and get straight into growing. And imagine it might be their first ever vegetable garden. I'm so excited for whoever gets it. And you know what, that kind of eases the pain as well, knowing that me stepping back from it gives someone else the chance to grow. I love that. It always upsets me when people hang on to allotments that are in a horrible state and they're obviously not growing or hardly growing anything. I just think, you know what, it's not for you, give it up and let someone else have it who is going to grow a ton of veggies there. So that's the plan with the garden, give it up in March. Now, because I'll be giving it up in March, I won't be doing any seed starting. This one's just for Paul. I won't be doing any starts. I won't be doing any seed starting at home. So that would be in February, it would be the peppers and the celery. As we get into March, it's tomatoes, and in previous years, it's been the cucumbers, the squash, all that stuff. So that by April, my entire window sill is covered in plant pots. My window seat in front is plant pots. The floor in front is plant pots. Going down all the stairs outside my front door is all the plants hardening off before they go to the garden. I won't have all that. And that's perfect, because that's when I want to have my flat on the market. The thing about this flat is, literally everybody who's ever come here for the first time, the first thing they do, they come through the front door, into the main room, and they go straight to the window. People are drawn to that window, and it's such a fantastic view from up here. It's gorgeous. So I don't want anything in the way of the window. I don't want anything to impede that when someone comes to view the property to buy it. Even my blanket box that's in front of the window that I use as a window seat, I'll move that out of the way so they can literally walk in, go straight up to that window. It's a selling point. It's one of the reasons I bought this place. So yeah, no plants in the way, no mess. Not, you know, in the kitchen, half-used bags of compost under the eaves. I always end up with pots and pots stacked up and my trays waiting to use. It's a mess. It's a cluttered mess. And the very thing I want when I come to sell is all the clutter gone. Spare freezers, gone. A lot of the stuff with the shop, I need to find somewhere else to put it, to clear that, so that really whoever comes here really sees the space and how big it is. Square footage wise, I was mentioning this to someone the other day, square footage wise, my studio is as big, and in some cases bigger, than some of the one bed flats I've already been kind of looking at, just online. There's a lot of square footage here. Actually, I don't know the square footage, I only know it in metres. And I've suddenly forgotten my meterage. I think it's 55 square metres. It's 500 and... oh, I don't know. Anyway, so the point is, by not having a garden, it makes life so much easier for me in terms of selling this place and staging it for viewings. So, of course, as well as we go into the winter... once the garden has calmed down towards the end of October, I may not be quite so thorough about covering everything with cardboard and doing all that. Because that's another thing, remember, is I have to find cardboard and take it to the garden. It just never ends. So anyway, let's say the garden is more or less tucked up at the end of October. Then I've got October, November, December and into January to do all the small repairs that need doing, to freshen up the paint in, I think probably the kitchen and the bathroom. I think the main room, it's okay, I don't need to redecorate. But suddenly it's like all these things are going to be possible without a garden. So yeah, in terms of actually, you know, starting to look for property as well, everything was held up slightly because of this lease extension. I need to get having the lease extended to 125 years. It's a legal document. It's still with the land registry. Once that comes back, whew, let's go. That's due hopefully in January next year. So what I'm aiming to do in January is go to all the estate agents in the area and register my interest and give them my very, very specific list of what I need and want. Primarily, it has to be ground floor. That's the no compromise part. Pretty much most else I'll compromise on. The idea being that they can let me know even before something comes on the market. And the minute that there's something that looks like it's going to be the property I want to buy, get this place on the market. Might market it sooner than that. I'll take advice from the local estate agents. But of course, and it's something else you've all been asking about, on bend my knees. Would I now consider moving out of the area because I don't have the allotment to keep me here? Well, the fact is, there's a lot more that keeps me here than just the allotment. You know, it's obvious from the way I talk about it. I love this community. I love the shops. I love the convenience of everything. I have fantastic public transport, great hospitals nearby, and of course all my friends. So I am prepared to look further afield. I may have to because of price. I certainly won't be able to stay in the top end of my village because I live at the expensive end. If I go all the way down the hill, it does get cheaper down the hill. But yeah, I am prepared to look pretty much anywhere. But the criteria, you see, my criteria for moving in this area is simple: ground floor. That's my only stipulation. It has to be the ground floor. My stipulation, if I move further afield, the list is massively long. Obviously, it's got to be ground floor. But I need to replace this high street wherever I go. There are certain things that I must have in terms of, you know, post office, greengrocer, ironmonger, all these kind of things. And they have to be within walking distance. In other words, wherever I go, I need to live in a town centre again. You know, like a little market town. Like Alnwick. I loved Alnwick. I love Alnwick. It has to have those things because they're vital to both my work but also my well-being. So those are the have-tos. But also really important is public transport because I don't drive and I have zero intentions of learning to drive. I don't like cars. So preferably on a mainline train station so that I can easily get on a train and visit friends, family, but also really good local bus service so that if I do have a hospital appointment wherever, I can get to it on the bus. You know, if it's one bus a week in a gorgeous little village, it can be the most gorgeous village in the whole world. It doesn't matter, because if there's no shops there, if there's no post office, if there's no buses, I will be so utterly isolated there. It's just like game over for Vivi. Anyway, so yes, I was going to try and keep it briefer today. So that's the plan. Garden keeps going until March. By January, I'm ready to put my property on the market and start looking at property. And what would be amazing in the dream world is that by May, June, July or so of next year, that the exchange, it's all done and I'm getting ready to move into my new place and it's got a little tiny bit of a garden. It doesn't need to be much, even the size of my kitchen. You know, just somewhere where I can have a table and a couple of chairs so I can sit outside, read, have friends over, chat, sit outside and eat. I love eating outside. And maybe a few pots If it's big enough, maybe a couple of raised beds so I can do some veggies and some flowers. That would be great. But you see, here's an interesting one. Here's the toss-up, the would you if and would you if. If I could get a property in this area with no garden, would I go for that over a property outside of the area with a garden? No, I think I probably still want to stay in the area. It's home. It's my home. So there we go. That's where things are at. So where are we now? We're just into June. Hopefully in about 12 months' time, I'll be sitting in front of the camera and there'll be wallpaper hanging off the walls because I'll be in my new place and I'll be doing it up. And that's the other thing as well in terms of videos. Hang on, another slug. Okay, a load of people misunderstood the last video. I'm not shutting the channel. I'm keeping the channel going. I just won't have gardening videos. And I was just speculating, would that mean that everyone would disappear because I only want the gardening? But so many of you have reassured me that you come for the chat as well, if not over the gardening. Of course, because I know you're all nosy Parkers, just like I am, of course I'm going to bring you along on the adventure of moving home. I don't know that I'll be showing you all the properties I'm looking at. I don't know whether that would violate people's privacy if I'm filming in their homes. But once I have secured a property, from that first minute we open the door, I say we, I open the door, I'm going to take you in, show you, and I'll talk about all my plans and fantasies for vivifying it. And then as and when I'm doing things, my decorating, DIY, whatever it is, of course I'm going to bring you along for that, because that's what friends do, isn't it? Brilliant. All right, lovelies. I just looked at the clock. This was supposed to be a quick catch-up. As usual, it's not. But I hope, if nothing else, that that allays anyone's worries about me, because you know what? I'm in a really, really good place. I'm so excited. But also, I hope it just kind of finishes any of that conversation about, you know, with the garden. But what if you did this, and what if you did that, and what if you did the other? No, it's done. Pasture's new, pasture's exciting, and as a few of you have pointed out, my channel name is What Vivi Did Next. So it's about time I did something next, isn't it? Oh, I'm giddy. I'm so giddy. Right. I'll see you again soon. Next time, it really needs to be the garden. Harvesting. I'm overdue. Story of the garden this year. I'm overdue to do some harvesting. Tour, all of that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we get some nice weather and we can go and pick some yummy veg in a few days and talk about how I'm going to use them in the kitchen. We might be in the kitchen before then anyway with this shopping I've just done. Whatever it is, I will see you then. But until then, please look after yourselves. And you know what? Dream big. Don't be afraid to make change. Think things through. Don't do things rashly, but think things through. And when you do have to say goodbye to something or feel like you're giving something up, try not to focus on what you're giving up. Try to think about what you're gaining. And I'm certainly gaining a lot, and I'm so grateful for that. For now, though, lots of love. Cheerio.